Let's dive right into this explainer with a scenario we've all probably wondered about. You're at the local market and suddenly the price of tomatoes just spikes. Boom! Naturally, you'd think, why don't farmers just magically produce more right now and cash in? I mean, it sounds simple enough, right? But the answer actually unlocks one of the most fascinating mechanics in all of economics. Today, we're exploring exactly how time limits our ability to react. Because, as it turns out, the ultimate superpower in any industry isn't just having a killer product, it's having the time to actually scale it up. To map out this constraint, we'll be moving from a phase of total market rigidity to a distant future of total flexibility. We'll start with a quick intro to supply, then hit the market period, the short-run adjustment, the long-run horizon, and finally wrap it all up with a strategic compass. First up, Section 1, Introduction to Supply, Unlocking Market Mechanics. Before we dissect these different time horizons, we really need to ground ourselves in what supply actually means in the real world. Because, trust me, it's super easy to confuse what a business literally has sitting around with what that business is actually willing to sell. The absolute crucial point here is understanding the difference between the stock a producer holds and the actual supply they're putting out there. Picture a farmer who just harvested 10,000 kilos of wheat. All that grain sitting in the silo, that's the stock. It's the total available amount, the potential. But the actual supply, the specific economic variable we care about, is only the portion of that stock the farmer is offering for sale right now at today's market price. If prices are rock bottom, they might just release 5,000 kilos and hold the rest back. So supply isn't just what physically exists, it's a desired quantity, and it is entirely dependent on price. And that brings us to the core mystery we're solving in this explainer. If prices skyrocket this very afternoon, say everyone suddenly desperately needs that wheat or those tomatoes, can producers instantly capitalize on it? Can they just snap their fingers and flood the market with more goods? Let's step into Section 2 to find out. The market period, or what we can call the rigid present. This is the absolute shortest time horizon we can look at. And, spoiler alert, it is defined by one harsh, undeniable reality: total inflexibility. Think about this first phase in terms of a graph, specifically the S1 curve. Imagine drawing a steep, unmoving, perfectly vertical straight line. In this specific time frame, the market period, the price on the vertical axis can shoot up and up and up, but the quantity supplied on the horizontal axis, it does not budge. It is completely fixed. Why? Well, because you literally can't squeeze more out of a system than what has already been produced today. To put that into perspective, think about perishable agricultural goods brought to a daily vegetable market. Let's say a farmer unloads their freshly harvested cabbages at dawn. By noon, a massive surge of buyers floods in and the price of cabbages doubles. Incredible opportunity, right? But output absolutely cannot change that single day, regardless of the price spike. The cabbages have already been grown, harvested, and trucked in. The maximum possible supply is just the physical stock sitting right there in the back of the truck. In the market period, you are entirely trapped by the present moment. But as the clock ticks forward, things change. Welcome to Section 3, the short-run adjustment, or as I like to call it, the hustle. Now think about the S2 line, representing the short run. Notice how it's no longer a brick wall? Imagine an upward sloping line. As the price goes up, the quantity can actually move to the right just a little bit. This tells us that our capacity to expand is still limited, sure, but it is no longer zero. Supply has become somewhat responsive. It's slightly elastic to those price changes. So what does this mean on the ground? In the short-run period, our farmer or factory owner still faces major constraints. They can't just magically construct a massive new production plant or acquire 1,000 acres of new farmland overnight. But what they can do is hustle. They can run their existing machinery for longer hours, they could add a second worker shift or pay their current crew overtime to stay late. They're squeezing every last drop of productivity out of the assets they already have. The supply expands, but only up to the absolute physical limits of their current setup. Now, let's zoom way out to the distant future. Section 4, the long-run horizon, the open horizon. If the market period is a locked door and the short run is a cracked window, the long run, that is a wide open field. To see this ultimate flexibility in action, think about the S3 curve. It's a much flatter line stretching out horizontally. For a relatively small increase in price, you're suddenly getting a massive increase in the quantity supplied. This curve is highly responsive. Those stubborn constraints that held us back in the previous two periods, they have completely dissolved. So why exactly is it so flexible? Well, because in the long run, time is no longer a trap. Everything is on the table. Existing firms can scale up massively by building brand new plants and factories. On the flip side, unprofitable firms have the time to cleanly shut down old operations and exit. But here's the real game changer. Brand new competitors, seeing those high prices and juicy profits, have the time to enter the industry entirely from scratch. This brings about a huge change in the quantity supplied. When you give it enough time, supply becomes highly elastic. This brings us to section 5, the strategic compass, and really why time matters. We've walked through the 3 periods, but why does this actually matter to a budding entrepreneur, a business manager, or just a curious consumer? It absolutely matters, because recognizing these 3 distinct phases of time entirely dictates our ability to predict how markets will behave during a sudden shortage or a massive boom. If you aren't factoring in time, you literally cannot forecast supply. You have to know exactly where you stand. Are you stuck in step 1 with a completely fixed stock? Are you hustling in step 2 with slight flexibility? Or are you planning for step 3, where the horizon is highly flexible and wide open? When we think about strategic insights, the golden rule really jumps out. Responsiveness is everything, and it's ultimately just a function of time. Now, the basic law of supply tells us producers want to offer more at higher prices. Of course they do. But what this explainer proves is that wanting to supply more and actually being able to supply more are separated by the ticking of the clock. Understanding this elasticity across different time horizons is absolutely crucial for any kind of effective planning. I'll leave you with this final thought to ponder as we wrap up today. We've seen that today's supply might be as rigid as a brick wall, but next year's could be incredibly flexible. So if time truly controls the levers of supply, how prepared is your industry to bend when tomorrow's prices inevitably shift? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this gives you a completely new lens for looking at the markets around you.